Number one, the odds now favor the stock market staying up into May. If that occurs, it will be due to a bounce starting about now in several dominant large cap stocks. And there's a list of all the stocks that according to Hearst, are going to rally. Some of them have been drawn down quite a bit and are short-term oversold. And so, like in Microsoft and NVIDIA, I think we have waves one to the downside complete, and then we're going to get a bounce for wave two. And in both of those cases, that bounce should last, according to Hearst, into at least late April or early May. And when looked at all of the large cap stocks that were for a period of time leading the markets, and we've seen this rotation since about late October of last year out of some of those stocks and into um, smaller caps, value stocks, and other things I've been talking about. Um, but and that process, that rotation is well underway. However, I see evidence that we're going to get a bounce in a whole bunch of these now. And in some of them, I think they haven't made their all-time highs yet, especially NVIDIA, potentially Google, and Apple. And so we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But uh, how many of you were surprised when you saw that I added to the buy low model portfolio, um, Zillow, um, Microsoft, and Netflix last week? Yeah, I bet you were. I bet you were. But the size of the bounce, I started looking at the size of the potential bounce, and it's pretty sizable, maybe 20%. Even if it's just a wave two retrace, partial retrace in the case of Netflix and Microsoft. So that is going to affect the markets. There's no question if all of these stocks are going to rally into late April, early May timeframe, it's going to affect the indices. Um, and I think it's instructive to look last week and what happened. This is a 1 week look at the S&P, and you'll notice that a number of these stocks were up. In the case of Amazon, it also was deeply oversold, probably in a wave one to the downside. It's time for a wave two, and it could be sizable. And Microsoft really didn't go down that much. So you can see some of these former leadership stocks last week started into a bounce. And additionally, you'll notice that energy wasn't necessarily that strong last week. Except there were pockets of extreme strength, like in Occidental Petroleum. But notice um, Walmart um, pulling back 8% is very interesting because this is, I think it was getting a final push to the upside in a kind of a flight to safety, a bid into consumer defensive. And that seems to be rolling back toward the large caps. So I try not to be a perma anything, as you all know. Um, I'll take what the market gives me. And in the case of these large cap stocks, I think it's time for a bounce. And if they make some new all-time highs here as we move into, for example, May, then that's going to affect these stock market indices. Then, number two on the key points of the webinar, the resurgence in the Mag 7 will not if necessarily affect the rally in the oil and gas sector very much. And the reason I say that is because those were extremely low recently, and they're starting to rally. As some of them are in wave threes. They're not finished with the wave threes. That sector is still in rally mode. It's got a long way to go, in my estimation. However, it is short-term overbought on the buy low portfolio holdings. I've been gradually going through and updating this notes field, which has the projected next Hearst date to buy and how long to hold the stock for. I've gotten some really good emails thanking me for adding this spreadsheet and where it really adds some perspective on timing the investments, not only on when to get in, but when to get out. And this has been one of the shortfalls, I think, of many services, is they might let you know when it's time to get in, but they don't let you know when it's time to get out. So, because there is a large cycle trough due in the third quarter, possibly early in the fourth quarter, I made this point before, but I think it's important to have an exit date in mind on some of these stocks, especially considering how awesome this is the holdings portfolio. If you sort it by percentage gain over the last month, you can see a lot of these stocks are well up, and the great majority of them are well up over the last month. Over the last 3 months, um, the great majority of them are up. Over the last week, over half of them are up. So we're seeing this rally in oil and gas is well underway, and a few of these are starting to pull back just a little bit on the short term. And so I've been updating all those on the holdings. This is the holdings, and also on the candidates screenshots. And I'm convinced, and when you look at the candidates as I update a lot of these dates, you'll notice that there's a number of buy low times to either buy more or buy a dip in March. In March, maybe on average about mid-March, be the next dip. So, to continue with the idea, the sector short term is overbought, so it might pause a little bit into mid-March based on Hearst analysis on many of our buy low candidates, but also has much higher to go into June, July on average on all those stocks before the correction down into the third or early fourth quarter. And then finally, there's technical evidence now that the US dollar has put in a large cycle bottom in late January. So that would have been on the very same day as gold and silver and most of the metals topped and ended their parabolic run. It was, I think, Jan 29, something like that. And I think that was potentially a large cycle bottom in the US dollar. And when I do a Hertz analysis of just the US dollar index, it's possible we'll get a US dollar rally all the way through late 2027 now. If I look just at the euro, and the US dollar rally should take us all the way at least through October of this year. So that's several months. Most of the rest of this year, a stronger US dollar. All of this is based on Hearst. And so I revised my US dollar index wave count a bit, and I'll show that to you. And the US dollar is likely to strengthen the most against the European currencies, the euro, Swiss franc, Uh, and there's still the potential for other currencies to strengthen against the strengthening dollar as the U.S. dollar is strengthening, and those would be the Japanese yen and the Canadian dollar. But this move to the upside in the U.S. dollar is likely to be a significant headwind for metals, but it should not negatively affect the ongoing rally in energy. First, we'll start with Apple. Okay, I showed you last week that we were likely to get and Hearst really didn't change his mind at all, an upside from about now all the way to May 4 in Apple. And I was remember, I was calling this the top over here. Well, I revised this count. I don't think the top is in on Apple. So up from this low, I think we need a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up into early May. Well, this is huge. It's huge news. Now, admittedly, the money flow looks terrible on it. But if let me see if I change that to a daily. Look at the money flow in a daily chart. It is we've been seeing some money flow coming in, so this could be a wave 1, 2, and then we have a 3, 4, 5 on up. That's what I'm saying. Well, this would be really, really influential on the indices, wouldn't it? That occurred. How about Amazon? Amazon popped late last week from deep oversold territory, and Hearst thinks it's going to move up all the way through early June. This cannot be ignored. I think and if this, I think this is going to have a positive effect on the indices, and so I think calling a top on the indices the way I have um, is questionable. That's my whole point here. So now Amazon's down 24% down into that low, but got a pretty good size weekly bullish engulfing candle out of Amazon. How about Broadcom? Well, Hearst thinks it's going to stay up until May 11. Should I look for maybe an alternate where it puts in a new high over here? Yeah, I think probably so. That's a lot of weeks of up. Alibaba, bearish. Why? Stronger dollar. I think we're going to get a stronger dollar here. So this is not this and emerging markets. I believe is not the place to be right now, based on what I think is happening in the U.S. dollar index. I revised this Boeing count a little bit. It looks like it wants to pull back some more down into April, but still, Hertz suggests, but the composite line goes higher in June than it is now or was recently. So I don't think Boeing peaks until uh, June. There's been a lot of nice money flow coming in on Boeing. Berkshire Hathaway, Hearst thinks it stays up into mid-May. So there's your stay up, stay up, stay up, stay up, then puke down into uh, third quarter, in this case, all the way down into October. Caterpillar. Hearst thinks it stays up into early May. CVX making a nice move. It looks like it's on a wave 3. That wave 3, if this is a wave 3, it's only about not, it's not even halfway done yet to the upside. So up from this low, this would be the April low of last year. 1, 2, now definitely wave 3 character. Expecting this to continue generally to the upside through mid-June. Now, we don't currently own CVX in the buy low portfolio. It's considered a candidate. And so notice I'm saying buy hold through March 13 or on through June 10. So you could I think, buy it now and hold through March 13, but you probably would want to hold it all the way on through June 10. Why? Because this is a wave three. That's why. On wave threes, and it took me a little while to determine for sure that we're in a wave three, but I believe clearly we are. In wave threes, you get overbought, but it keeps going, and the pullbacks are brief and shallow. So yes, it is expecting a multi-week pullback. The Hearst is between mid-March and mid-April, but I don't think that pullback's going to amount to very much. It's not going to pull back very much. Disney, even lowly, pathetic Disney, and Hearst is bullish on it through into May next. I mean, how many of these stocks we have to look at that have it's singing the same tune? These are important stocks. They're big. Now, the copper miners, because I'm expecting the U.S. dollar to strengthen, not as much time to put in this fifth wave to the upside up through mid-March. Notice Google looking for a bounce all through up through mid to late April next. Could it be that it makes one more new all-time high there? Yeah, it's possible. Considering how ugly this looks down here, I mean, look how these stocks have held in there. It's amazing. Home Depot looking to the upside through approximately May. JP Morgan, not so hot. I'm kind of looking at sideways price action until May. So I don't think banking is necessarily going to be that great. And I don't think pharmaceutical companies are necessarily going to be that great either. Looking down into late March and then up through May 28. Before then, it pukes down into the next large cycle trough due in October. Meta, bullish into late April. Microsoft, deeply oversold, down almost 30% at the recent low. Look at this buy signal. The same buy signal came in right here, but way back in April of last year, according to the money flow versus RSIs. I got to look at this going, oh, well, let me see. Microsoft's down 30%. It looks like it's down in 5 waves. Hearst thinks that this is a 40-week cycle trough and it's deeply oversold. That's why I bought it in the model portfolio and looking for a return, just back to the wave four of one lesser degree. So how big of a percentage move might that be? Well, 22%. It's not insignificant at this point. And Hearst is bullish on it through, guess what? Mid-May. Then you get to puke down into the third quarter, next large cycle trough. Newmont. Still think the top is in on Newmont. I think the stronger dollar is going to hurt the metal space. Netflix, recently down 44%. I mean, that's a crash. That is a crash of 44% in a really large stock, and it crashed back to the wave four here. Hearst thinks this is a 40-week cycle trough, and it's bullish through late April. So how even if we just got a 50% retrace here, we're talking about a 40% gain. NVIDIA, check this out. It looks like to me NVIDIA's put in a triangle here, and Hearst is bullish through May 15th. NVIDIA announces on Wednesday of next week. I would say the chances are very good that they're going to do their usual, thing where they blow it out of the water. They have just superior earnings, and but it looks like see how that looks like a triangle? I'll put that on daily chart. A, B, C, D, E, and we're already starting to move up out of this triangle. And so that could be a thrust, and if NVIDIA is going to thrust to the upside out of that triangle, it's got a chance to make it up to these large degree Fibonacci targets. This could be a move, an enormous move, all the way up to $325 on NVIDIA. Now, before I was counting this as the top, and this is a one, and it just been just moving sideways, and yet, and Hertz thinks it's going to move up through mid-May out of a 40-week cycle trough. I had to change this count, had to, if it's going to be compatible with Hearst. And yes, the money flowed out as it does during a triangle, and now it's starting to pop to the upside. Watch out for this one, and I have it. I have added it to my buy low candidates list. NVIDIA. Buy February 6th, hold through May 15 only. February 6th, by the way, um, was that pink wave 4 low right there. Uh, so I don't know how many, there's just too many stocks where Hearst is bullish on them end up into late April, early May to ignore. And these are huge stocks. So they will affect the markets, the indices, in my opinion. Occidental, huge move last week, huge move. This is a breakout now above these highs of last year, and this is going a lot higher. Occidental, yeah, short term, the money flow is overbought. Not to worry because that's what happens in a wave three. So the pullback should be brief and shallow on the way up. Hurst thinks it keeps moving up through at least, really just ignoring the little dips, through at least late July. PepsiCo. Um, Hertz thinks it's going to pull back through mid-March, but then has more upside. Palantir. Hertz thinks it's going to rally between now and late August. Tesla. Hertz thinks it's going to rally, but only through mid-March. Walmart. Hearst is bearish down into June, July. So this consumer's defensive stock The topping the way it did and pulling back, I think is we could see this rotation out of consumer defensive into the Mag 7s. ExxonMobil, yeah, it's pulled back a little bit this week. Not very much, really. Uh, Looking for more upside generally into mid-June. Short term, it's definitely overbought. But if this is a multi-year triangle, as I'm calling it, and I don't know why someone wouldn't accept that at this point as being correct, because we're getting tr thrust like price action out of a triangle, 2.5 year long triangle. This has got a lot higher that it's going to go. Matter of fact, on Exxon, eventually looking for it to reach up to August of 2027. Um, but watch out for that pause, and that's what I'm worrying about, the down into the next 18-month cycle trough. But I think that this one stays up into early to mid-June before embarking on that move down, almost universal move down into that large cycle trough due in the third quarter or possibly on into October on virtually everything. So when you get a thrust out of a target, you get overbought, but it doesn't matter. It stays resilient, and it's got a lot further to go after a 2.5 year long triangle.